This is my book, The Cosmic Field Guide, and in this you will find a number of challenges designed to improve your astrophotography game, all the way from beginner up to expert level. Tonight we're going to be doing one of the beginner level challenges called Capture the Moon, where the aim is simply just to capture a picture of the moon with visible craters. I'm going to walk you through it and also give you some tips and tricks how you can take more interesting moon shots. So instead of just taking the moon, we're going to be trying to put in some interesting foregrounds, and that poses some challenges that I'm going to walk you through today.
As with any good astrophoto, the whole thing starts with good pre-planning, and especially with shots like this, because we need to consider the foreground. I don't want to just take a picture of the moon. I want to make it interesting. I want to have it in a frame with other things. This time around, I think I want to take some pictures inside the city, kind of do some cityscapes here. And one of my absolute favorite buildings is this. This is the Copenhagen Planetarium. Oh, that's actually a drone shot. That's perfect. Oh, that's awesome, actually. And there we can see it. Very, very beautiful, I think. Very distinct building, round with that slanted roof. It really stands out. And with all the lake here, it's just really perfect. And kind of what I had in mind was to go somewhere along the shore here. We can already see now, this is perfect with this bird eye view, that we have some kind of like steps or platform here that looks like we can get a clear view across the water from there. And I also noticed there's some kind of platform over here. We can maybe use that to shoot across the water if we need more distance. It looks like there's a few gaps in the trees here, 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 and here that we might be able to use and then shoot across the entire lake here if that's what we want. It kind of depends, because we need the moon in frame, obviously. So it kind of depends where the moon is. And I want to capture the moon just after it rises above the building. So kind of the shot I have in mind is, if we just, this would be a really cool angle, I think. What we need to figure out now is, what direction does the moon rise in? Now, if we just want to use free tools, we can use Stellarium, and we can see here, I've set it up so we can kind of see the moon here. We can see the moon rise here towards pretty much almost due east. And it looks like if we needed to get some distance above the horizon, around 1900 seems to be a good time. Maybe 1830 is a good time to go out and get this image. And we're kind of going east, like east, southeast kind of direction. Now, if you want to use paid tools, there is an awesome app called PhotoPills. This is really great. You can see here we have what's called, they have the planner, which I really like. I've actually already set it up here, as you can see. Basically what you do is you set up what you want to see. In this case, I've set it, you can set the layers in here, and you can see I've hidden sun and moon. I just want to see the moon. And what we have now is, you can see that the thick blue line, that's the moon rise direction. And this dark blue line you can barely see over here is the set direction. I can now see, okay, at what time, where is the moon? So if I wanted, slightly to the right of the planetarium, we can see here that I can kind of move it, say, around there's probably pretty good. On the challenge in my book, there's a list of recommended equipment. For my shot tonight, I'm going to be using my Canon RA for my camera body. And I'm going to be experimenting with two lenses. I'm going to be using my 70 to 200mm f4 zoom lens. And I'm also going to be playing around with my wide field 14mm that I usually use for Milky Way photography, but maybe we can use it for something fun to get a wider angle. I also highly recommend that you bring a tripod, which will be obvious in a minute. And if you have it, a remote shutter release, so you don't have to touch the camera to when you take the pictures. You don't have to have it, because alternatively you can just use the delayed release. So you just set like a 2 or 5 or 10 second delay after you press the button before the image is taken, so the camera doesn't shake as you're taking these pictures. So now that we're ready, we're gonna wait for darkness, hope for good weather, and then let's get out. Now, when you're out in the dark, the biggest problem you're going to be facing, that is dynamic range. Because even though we're in the city and there's a lot of light in here, the moon is just so bright that you're not going to be able to both get the moon, get all the details in the moon, and then see the foreground. And also, if you want to see the foreground, then the moon's going to get completely blown out and overexposed. Start by focusing on the moon, get as much zoom as you can with your highest focal length lens, and try to get a clear image of the moon to start with. Forget everything else. And as you are taking these pictures of the moon, I recommend you try to take first the image you think is correctly exposed, then overexpose it a little bit, then underexpose it a little bit afterwards. This allows you to have a bit more freedom in edit that we get to in a bit. In the book, you will also find recommended camera settings that you could use to take these pictures of the moon. So I recommend that you go and read through those as well. Now, when it comes to the foreground, it's essentially the exact same thing as when we were doing the moonshots. Focus on one element at the time. Now, allow me to explain what I mean. Look at this picture here. I have a series of pictures here where I was only focusing on the water. I didn't care about the sky. I didn't care about the building. I was just looking at the water, and I was only focusing on that part, because if I get the water right, then I can focus on the building afterwards. Then I can focus on the sky at the end maybe. So look at this. This first shot here, we can see the reflections here in the water, and this is a relatively long exposure. Everything is blurred out. Everything is like nice and smooth. If that's the look you're looking for, great. But I was playing around with it, and I was like, okay, hold on, I'm going to try to drop the exposure. And we can see here now I get more details in the water. I can begin to see more of the water texture. And I thought, okay, that's kind of cool. I kind of like that I can see the textures in the water. So I tried to like play around with it, and I dropped it even further. In this shot here, you can see we really begin to get some details. And I really like that. I think that really emphasizes the water a lot, which I think was pretty cool. So you can see now all this up here is really underexposed. It's complete dark like column here where we can't see anything. So I was just playing around with the water, and now that I was happy with the water, I could move on to other things, and then I could say, okay, let's begin looking at the building. Let's make sure we get some details in the roof. Maybe that's kind of dark here. So just focus on one thing at a time, and then in a minute I'm going to show you how you do these high dynamic range stacks where we can take details from different exposure settings and combine them together and get like a really cool image. And this is a technique you're gonna be learning when you're doing night photography, because you often get to situations like this where there are some things that's extremely dark, and there are other things like the restaurant over here that's extremely bright, and we need to get everything in our picture at the same time. So we are now in GIMP, and this is the image that I've decided to work with. I like the moon's position here, and I kind of like the framing. I think it came out quite nice. I have two images here. You can see I have one here called overexposed, and I have one here that's darker, that's called underexposed. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to identify what elements I want from each picture. First of all, I can notice here on the underexposed, I don't know how well it shows up on camera, but I can actually see a little bit of detail here in the roof. I'm going to try to pull a bit more out. I think in the underexposure, the roof is just dark. So I definitely want here from the overexposed, I definitely want to see if I can get keep the details from the roof. But we can see here that the tiles here are kind of blown out. So we definitely want that from the other picture where they're not so blown out. On the other hand, I really like that warm color that we have here in the city compared to the little bit more dull we have here. But I like the water in this picture more. Now, the easiest way to do it is just to place the two pictures in two layers, and then put the overexposed, the bright picture at the bottom and the dark picture at the top. And then right click the dark picture at the top, and then click add layer mask, grayscale copy of image. We're now going to use the grayscale value as a layer mask, and that is almost going to do like 90% of it for us. We can see here, now we have, again, the tiles are kind of okay. We can do that a little better. We can still see a small amount of details here in the roof. I'm gonna pull out more, but we can go in and we just make sure we have the layer mask selected here. And now with either painting it white or black, we can then decide whether we want to see the over or underexposed. But the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure I get the water. So I have a nice white, like soft brush here. I'm going to begin basically painting on the layer mask. You can see as I do here, I just basically paint in the water from the dark of the two pictures, and I can just go through it here. There. Look at that. So now we have the water from the dark. I really like that details we got there. Also from the bright image, we wanted to have the ceiling here, so make sure we get that in here as well. Just to get just a small little notch there, just to get a bit more details there in the roof. Something like that, I think, is okay. Okay, next up, what we can do is now we need to go and fix that moon, because obviously this is, as I said, this is going to be completely blown out. So we're going to go and try to see if we can get a moon in. So I'm going to take one of the shots I have of the moon, and let's drag that in there. Now, here, of course, you can see, even though it's obviously it's not centered, so it's not even close to being the right position or anything like that. So I'm just going to take a elliptic select tool. We can fix it. It doesn't matter if it's not 100% perfect, but I think this is fine. Copy and put that into a new layer. Basically just copy and paste it, and we now delete that. So now we have the moon on its own. So we can now take this moon layer and we can position it kind of where we want it. Now it's way bigger than it was on the night, so we should probably, like, you can make a decision. Do we want to keep the moon bigger than it actually was and keep it large, or do we want to scale it down? Make that decision now. Now, obviously, this doesn't look very good. Like, everybody can see that's not what the moon's supposed to look like in this image, right? It's clearly stitched in here. So we're gonna go and do some work on the moon now to make it look more realistic, because it's too dark, right? It's supposed to be this bright, shining thing. So if we go up to colors, go to exposure, drag up the exposure here. And what I'm looking for here is, as soon as I begin to see, you can see here, this looks like this is my brightest area in the image. As soon as I begin to see that clipping there, you see that? I began to lose details right there. So I'm gonna pull that back until around there, I think is fine. So that's about as much as I can do with the exposure setting for now, at least. A trick I often like to do is to go in and just drop the saturation, basically making it into a black and white image. And then after that, go into my color temperature and then zoom out here and then just play with the color temperature. You can see now I can make the moon like really red or really blue, play around with it until it has a color that you feel like is kind of natural for the image. And I feel like around there looks about right. We're in the city, so it should be a little yellow. It's low on the horizon, stuff like that. And you can see how effectively that got rid of that like colored edge there. We still have some black, darker colors around the edge. So there are multiple ways we can do that. One way I like to do it is to, again, go and take the select by color tool, put the threshold all the way up. And now we just select the moon. We can see we have the entire thing selected. Then go to selection. And we basically go to shrink the selection. What I want to do is I want to get it inside that black border there. So it looks like it's about 3 pixels wide. So we go to selection, shrink the selection by 3 pixels. And that looks about right to me. So I'm going to go and invert my selection. And now I can just come around here and just carefully erase some of that edge there. And that's why you want like this really, really soft tool, so that it's not as visible when you then deselect it where that like edge was. Okay, already looking a lot better than we did before. Now, because we kind of increased the moon, we might actually want to try and increase that glow around it a little bit, just to get a more natural looking glow. What we can do, we can try, I don't know if it will work, we can make a glow layer maybe. This is a bit of an experiment. Let's see if it works. I'm gonna select the color in here very close to where the moon is, like not inside the complete white area, but just there. You can see there's actually a little green because of that color fringing. So I'm probably gonna select it more there, whoops, where it's more neutral in color, right between the two. It's a little bit on the red side, that's probably fine. And then I have 2 colors, so the other color I'm gonna select out here, way away from the glow. And then we can go, and I think there's like a gradient tool in gradient. So this is, okay, so here's my glow layer so far. It looks a little weird with the colors there, but I think it's okay actually. What I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna overlay the moon. Once again, make a, whoops, that's not correct again. Make a rough circular selection around the moon, and then give it like a really aggressive feather, like 500 pixels. There we go. And then we're gonna invert it. So again, we select the outside area, and if I now delete from this glow area, there. Now look at this. I think I've been experimenting with this a little bit. Look at this now. The glow layer alone, just look at this. You can see how it just adds, a bit more glow. Because we chose those colors, it kind of looks pretty natural. And if we look here, I think that adds a lot. I want the moon to be a little brighter. I'm gonna try to basically boost the lower end, just to make it look like it was really, really bright on that night. We can do it with a simple levels slider here, and then just brighten that moon up. Drag that midpoint. So we just basically cram all the information into the high end here. We shouldn't really be overexposing by doing this. So we should retain the detail, but just really brighten that moon up a lot. There we go. I kind of like that, like bright view, especially with the glow. I think we got something now that I'm actually pretty happy with. The only thing I want to do is I want to work a little bit more with the colors in the main image. So let me just do that, and then let's see what we get as the final image. So here we have the final image. I'm actually really happy with the way that this turned out. I think it became a pretty cool shot. The only thing I would have wished for maybe was a few more clouds. Would actually be looking nice to add a bit more interest in the sky. This is a bit big and empty. But overall, I think it's a really, really cool shot. And that means now we can go and we can check off that challenge in the Cosmic Field Guide and on to the next one. Now, if you decide to go and complete any of the challenges in my book, The Cosmic Field Guide, I would love if you would share your results and your process with us over on the channel's Discord community. There is a link in the description, or you can scan the QR code here on screen. And then stay tuned to this channel for more astrophotography challenges in the future.
For the Astro mode, we're gonna get this additional adapter, slots in like so. You're just gonna put it up basically next to it, and you just click. Here's what you do. You can take this and you just hold it up to your finder scope. What will happen then